On behalf of the Anti-Cruelty Society, thank you very much for volunteering to work at Bark in the Park. It's one of our biggest and most popular fundraisers of the year. But we can only have this event with the help of folks like you, who are so generous with their time on the first Saturday of May each year. This video will specifically address the roles which volunteers will be playing with regard to registering participants for the 5K walk on event day. Each year, in preparation for Bark in the Park, we recruit 250 volunteers to work at these various activities, 20 of whom are assigned to the registration tents. On the day of Bark, there are two primary functions that fall under the registration umbrella. First, we register participants who have not pre-registered online. And secondly, we distribute registration numbers and other event materials to those who have previously registered, but not early enough to receive their event information in the mail. While many participants do register online prior to the walk, there are still a number of them who wait until event day, so we register them that morning. The volunteers who engage in this process will be in a tent, not surprisingly named registration. Our second tent is referred to as packet pickup. As the name implies, another group of volunteers provide participants who registered online after April 15th with registration numbers, event information, and any items already purchased online, such as doggy tees and bandanas. Okay, now you have an overview of the registration activity, so let's talk about the specific tasks which we are asking volunteers to perform. As I've said, in the registration tent, we will be processing people who need to register that morning. Most participants pay in cash, which we encourage, but we also accept checks or process credit card payments for those who prefer that payment mechanism. When checks are presented, you will have a stamp to imprint the Society's name on the check, so participants don't need to write it out. In order to further facilitate the registration process, we provide the necessary paperwork to people while they are waiting in line so they can complete it before reaching the registration tables. Then once there, the forms are ready to be processed. The volunteer responsible for doing so will want to ensure that all of the information has been provided and that the waiver is signed, a necessary requirement for participating in the day's activities. The completed forms are to be placed in boxes at each volunteer station, and the cash or checks deposited in a cash box given to each volunteer team. Once forms are completed and the payment is made, participants are handed registration numbers. At the registration, there will be boxes of safety pins available for participants to attach numbers to their shirts or jackets, so please remind them to take a few to do that. It is important that the numbers be prominently displayed because they signify that participants are registered to take part in all of the Bark events. When you finish with the registration process, please remind participants to pick up their t-shirts in the prize tent behind the registration tent before they leave Bark. In addition, pledge prizes for eligible participants can also be claimed there. Some participants like to do this before the walk and some wait until afterwards. Either way is fine. At the registration tent, event participants are organized into two sets of waiting lines. The first group is made up of people who are simply registering for the event that morning. Group number 2 will be signing up for the event and also turning in pledge money that they have raised. A pledge receipt must be completed and signed by the processing volunteer, acknowledging the amount of pledge funds received. Then participants can go to the prize tent to pick up the prize they are eligible for. While the majority of people raising pledges will have already registered online and turned in their pledges, there are always some who turn in their pledges when they register on the day of Bark. For people who have already registered and have additional pledges to turn in, they can either do that at the prize tent when they get their t-shirts, or at the registration tent, whichever is easier. I've referred several times to the registration form that must be completed for people in these two groups in order to participate in event activities. Now let's walk through them. The registration form is basically divided into several parts. The first part is person information. It's important that the participants fill out all the information, especially the t-shirt size. In the dog information section, please remind people that for the safety of all participants, we ask that there be only one dog per person. The most important part is signing the waiver. And if pledges are received, to fill in the amount on the lower part of the form. The other form is the receipt for pledges. Make sure that the registration rep signs the form and that the correct box is checked. At both registration and packet pickup tents, another group of volunteers is charged with ensuring that the lines remain orderly and that the traffic flow in front of the tables is maintained. They are called line monitors. They also distribute the registration forms that volunteers are asked to complete while they are waiting in line. It is extremely important that the line monitors, as well as the volunteers who are doing the actual processing, are both very familiar with the forms so that they can answer any questions which arise. While participants are waiting in line monitors are also asked to count any pledge money that they have raised and note the amount at the top right-hand side of the registration form. That way, after a quick look, the volunteer processing the participant can prepare a receipt. It is also the line monitor's responsibility to ensure that there is adequate space between the first person waiting in line and the table where the processing is taking place, so there can be a reasonable traffic flow for people walking from one end of the tent to the other. We divide participants who have registered online into two groups: those who have registered before April 15th and those who have received their registration numbers and general event information in the mail, and those who have registered more recently. Those registering more recently are referred to the packet pickup tent on the day of Bark in the Park to obtain their participant number, maps, and other general event information, as well as doggy tees or bandanas if they have been purchased online. At each volunteer station in the packet pickup tent, there will be a computer listing the names of participants who have already registered and the amount of pledges, if any, they have contributed. So when a participant is checking in, the volunteer should ask for their name to ensure that there is a record of the participant having registered in the computer. Assuming that this is the case, the name should be checked off, and then the participant should pick up a registration number and other event materials. The computer listing will also indicate if a person has purchased a bandana or a doggy t-shirt. If they have, please take one from the box close by and give it to them as well. Occasionally, there is a discrepancy between what the individual believes they have done online and our computer listing. If this occurs, or if you don't find their names, contact your tent captain. At each processing table in both tents, there will be copies of the layout for Bark in the Park, showing the course for the walk, the hospitality where the snacks are available from our generous sponsors, and the location of various activities and sponsored tents. Please invite participants to take copies of these maps. Because the registration tents are located at the front of Bark area, we are generally the first people representing ACS and Bark in the Park that participants encounter. Given what is often said about the importance of first impressions, we go out of our way to make sure that people's first encounter with Bark is a really positive one, and to thank them for supporting our event. A 50-50 raffle takes place at 11:30. If participants have purchased raffle tickets, they are included in the raffle and should listen for their name to be announced from the stage at 11:30 when the drawing will be held. However, they do not need to be present to win. Many companies and organizations organize teams of people who represent them while they're participating in the walk at BARC. Those folks should be referred to the team check-in at customer service in the registration. Even though registration does not officially begin until 7, it is important to allow time to receive any last-minute instructions and ask questions so that you are well prepared to welcome our enthusiastic supporters who are early risers. Thanks again for volunteering at registration this year. We hope it is a fun experience for you and that you'll want to come back again.